Hi everyone, and welcome to your first video in our lab lecture series. Today we're going to be going through some boring stuff. We're going to kind of talk about the lab component of the syllabus and talk about expectations for lab, before lab, and some stuff we'll be doing. So we'll get through it. First things first, we are a lab. Now, we're not a chemistry lab or physiology or micro, so we're going to have different requirements because we're not nearly as chemically invasive as those labs are. However, there is still a requirement that I need you to read the safety rules that I posted online. You're going to have to type your name in that introductory module, and that lets me know you read it and you understand it. I'm not really going to go through it too much. I'm just going to this is really I'm going to talk about, but that document has a lot of information about decorum, how the dissections are going to work, your expectations when using the anatomage, just so that we are all on the same page on how we are to act around both dissecting material with microscopes, models, and the anatomage. Now, the important things that I really want to get out of the way are three things. First and foremost, no phones in lab. Now, this sounds really weird, but what I mean is don't use your phone for social media. So I don't want to see Instagram or TikTok or Snapchat, for things like social media. Please don't take phone calls while you're in the lab, and try not to text while you're in the lab. We really want to be focused and engaged in the content during that period. If you need to step out for whatever reason, that's totally fine. Just try not to engage with that while you're in the lab room. However, I do want your phones out. In our class, we are going to use phones a lot for taking pictures of models, taking pictures of dissected organs. On the anatomage, we're going to be using it for taking pictures of stuff on the microscope, using it as a resource to look up questions that we have. So you are going to be using your phone or your tablet, etc., but please try to stay off of it if it's not related to the content. Now, the other thing we want to start practicing is wearing closed-toed shoes. It's very, very convenient to wear flip-flops and things like that, but we are in a lab. And even though we're not working with things like hydrochloric acid or have bacteria around all the time, we are still working with slides that are made of glass that can break and can cut your feet. Models and microscopes are heavy and can fall on your feet as well. And then, of course, when we do dissections, there's juice. So we want to make sure that we are properly prepared. I will be providing your PPE for dissections in terms of gloves and masks, and that's really all that's required for our class. So all I ask is that you wear closed-toed shoes. As we get closer to dissections, I'll really be reiterating that. And the final thing I want to really mention is there is no food or drink allowed in the lab. Let's talk about why and what I mean by that. You are welcome to bring food to class. Have it in a lunch bag, etc. Do not eat it. So don't eat your lunch in class, don't eat your breakfast, don't eat your snacks in class. If you need a minute to go outside and eat food, please do. Go in the hall, have a seat outside on the bench if the weather is nice, but please do not eat in lab. We are working on surfaces that have dissected material on it. We share this space with other students and other anatomy instructors, and although I am very meticulous about how I keep my lab rooms clean, again, we work with other people and other students, so you don't know what's on that table. Not quite sure you want to eat off of it. Another thing, food is greasy and sticky and leaves crumbs. We're going to be working with models that are very expensive. We are going to be working with real human bones, and I really don't want food substances or spilled coffee or energy drinks on those contents. And we'll also be working with tablets periodically, so no open containers. Now, water, totally okay if it's in a sealed container, totally fine. If you have like a Stanley cup or some other water bottle that does not close, you're gonna have to put that on our little drink caddy that we have and then go to it to drink. So not drinking in our lab spaces. Same thing goes with coffee. If your coffee or tea is not in a thermos, you will see mine is basically attached to my hip. If it's not in a sealed container where if it falls over it won't leak, it must go onto the drink caddy. Okay, so Starbucks, Dutch Bros, energy drinks, things like that, they have to go there and they cannot be moved. Okay, but please bring them if you need them to make it through class. Yeah, so those are kind of the main safety rules that we have in our class. Now, the next thing I'm going to go through are assignments that are primarily only in lab, and then at the end we'll talk about how we kind of incorporate all that into a fully fledged lab period. So each week you are assigned a pre-lab quiz, which is basically where you are engaging with content for the lab that week. I really want to emphasize that your pre-lab quizzes are not assessments. They are not looking to see, do you remember what was in these videos? Do you remember what you read? It's more to get you engaged with the lab manual, to have seen the content once before, so that when you get into lab, you are efficient and you're actually learning, not trying to figure out what the heck you're supposed to be doing. A lot of students are going to have the ability to come to open labs or go to the Tutoring and Learning Center, but I know a lot of you don't, and these 3 hours that we have carved out in your day, this is all you get. So I want to make sure that you are using it to your maximum. So you are assigned, as we talked about before, in like when we went through the introductory module, you're going to be assigned reading from the lab manual as well as lab videos to watch. Usually these are 1 or 2 lecture videos. Sometimes I'll have dissection videos to look at, or ancillary videos like model tours that you want to watch before coming to class. And of course, to give you guys the incentive to actually do it, you have a quiz. So what I want you guys to do is when you're doing your pre-lab quizzes, have one window or tab open with the lab manual, have the other tab or window open with the quiz. And when you need to find an answer, go to the lab manual. Again, these are untimed. I want you to engage with the content. I want you to get a perfect score. So these are always going to be due at 10 p.m. the night before your lab, okay? I do give you guys a grace period. Stuff happens. So if you turn your pre-lab quiz in between 10 p.m. and 11:59, the day it's due, you'll just lose a half a point, which is 10%, okay? And for those times when life is crazy and you just completely forget to do it, I do drop your lowest one. So there is some grace built into the course. Now, the first week of class is always the most chaotic and crazy. So ideally, you're going to be completing this pre-lab quiz before you see me this first week of class. Now, things happen and maybe you didn't get in and start working on this until Monday, or maybe you're on the wait list and this didn't happen for you. Those of you that are like, oh shoot, I didn't realize a pre-lab quiz is due and I have class in 10 minutes, you have until 5 o'clock the day of your lab to get that pre-lab quiz in. And those of you that are on the wait list, what I do is if you get into the course, you have 24 hours from when you email me that you're in to actually complete it. So I do give you some grace there, okay? So every week you got a pre-lab quiz due. Just kind of keep that booked on your regular schedule. Now we also have lab quizzes. You're gonna get really sick of me saying the phrase check-in, but that's what these are. We want to check in with our learning. We don't want to wait till the very end or until there's a big assessment. So I have lab quizzes built in sporadically throughout the course. Basically, any week you don't have a lab exam, you have a lab quiz. And the week that you have a lab exam, you have a lab practical. These are worth no points. You could do them, and great. You could not do them, and there's no penalty. The purpose of these lab quizzes are twofold. 1, what do you know and what do you not know? And 2, how is she going to ask questions on the test? So these are great ways for you guys to introduce yourself to my way of structuring questions and to test your own knowledge. There are soft due dates. So for example, your first lab quiz is due the 2nd week of class before your lab, and it would cover everything that we cover this first day of lab. That's a soft due date. That's what you want to get done. However, it's open until the night before the first lab check-in. so you have time to continue practice. Students get 3 attempts, and ideally what I want you guys to do with these sort of 15-minute, 15 to 20 question quizzes is within the first week, so before the next lab, take the lab quiz. See how you do. Study, take it again, and then take it again as you're preparing for the lab check-in. Now, Canvas is great in many aspects, and it's also awful in a lot of ways. And it's going to mark you wrong if you capitalize something and I didn't, or if you put a hyphen and I didn't, or if you put an extra space. So after you've completed your quiz, don't just look at the number that you got. Go back and look at each question and see, oh, I got it wrong because, wow, I was way off, or oh, it did the Canvas thing with spelling. I actually got it right. It's really important to do that because students get really connected to numbers and not why we got that number. So I want you guys to be doing that as you're going through these lab quizzes. Now, unit check-ins. Notice I don't say exams. How my class works is we are practicing what you're going to have to do in the programs you take after these classes. So primarily a lot of nursing students and dental hygiene. You guys are going to have to take your big licensing exam. So for nursing, that's the NCLEX. And it's everything that you've learned in nursing school, which is 2 years long. So you're going to have to remember stuff from your first semester of nursing. So we're going to practice that. Now, we have 5 units in lab. We have this first unit, which is like terminology and tissues. We have the second unit, which is the skeletal system, then muscular system, and our 4th unit is the internal organ system. Each of those units has their own check-in, which is going to be worth 50 points. So it's like an exam where I'm testing you on the content, but it's at a much lower point value. Most tests that you've taken are probably worth 100 points. Of those 4 unit check-ins, I dropped your lowest one. So those of you that have had me before are going, yay, muscle test. Those of you that haven't had me before, trust me. Now, at the end of the semester, we have a comprehensive final exam for lab. It is going to be 70% of our unit 5, which is our neuroanatomy lab, and 30% comprehensive. So in order to get that B, get that A, we have to make sure that we do remember content. And my class layers. So stuff that we talk about the first week is going to come back weeks later. It's foundational. It's not cram and dump. So you really want to make sure you're mastering at each level. Now, each check-in and the final exam is going to be composed of questions based off of images, microscope work, the anatomage, which I'll talk about in a second, as well as models and dissected organs. The part that stresses students out is the spelling. Spelling counts. And I know you're going to say, oh, I just type it in at work and it gives me whatever I'm looking for in my program. And that's true, but you still have to know how to spell it. So, for example, if I asked you to identify the xiphoid process, which is part of your sternum, this is the correct way to write xiphoid. Most of the time, when we're looking at medications that are very similar sounding or looking, it's the consonants that are differing, not so much the vowels. So if you spelt xiphoid this way, you didn't mess up any consonants, you just kind of had some weird vowels in there. Full credit. Now, let's say we replaced that X with a Z. That's not right, and if you tried to write xiphoid in your program at work with a Z, it would not give you the right thing you were looking for. But you're close, so I'll give you partial credit. And if you just completely get all the consonants wrong and it's not really close, I'm going to have to give you a 0 for that. So again, I know we can look things up. We don't really have to spell things that much now in our digital age. But again, even we need to know how to spell stuff if we're putting it into an order, etc., etc. Now, all of these check-ins are going to start at the beginning of the lab period. They're 65 minutes long, varying number of questions, usually about 100. The first one's going to be shorter, though, because there's just not enough content. And after the check-in, I break it down, and we come back and start our lab for the day. Now, as I mentioned, each week you're going to have a lab quiz that is completely optional. And the weeks that we have unit check-ins, you're going to have practice practicals. So each practice practical is going to sort of help you, again, put everything together. Now, apologies for these typos here, editing from earlier. These are really great things to take. Again, worth 0 points. They're timed to 65 minutes, and they are pictures from old exams that I've done in the past. So they help you not only see how I ask the questions, where I put the stickers, but again, it's going to help you see what you do and do not know. And I'm going to go through some tactics on how to approach these in class when we go through some of the handouts that we have. Now, the final thing I want to talk about before we get into how the class is going to run is your extra credit packet. So we have 2 really big extra credit assignments, etymology and diagrams from lecture, and then in lab we have a packet. One of the most important things about working in healthcare is you can't lose anything. Now, I know, again, we are in a digital age, but patients are still going to come in and hand you files or medical information from other doctors as hard copies. You cannot lose that. So we're going to practice that. Now, those of you that have had me before or have heard about it, my extra credit is not easy. You got to work for it, but it's very much worthwhile. So this extra credit packet is going to help you practice making sure you don't lose stuff and help you sort of keep an eye on your engagement with lab content. So there's going to be a bunch of different activities. We'll look at the packet together in class. But we have things like going to the Tutoring and Learning Center, doing your dailies, exam reflections are a big part of it as well. So you complete all those, you can get up to 40 extra credit points. Now, 2 important things. If you lose this, I will give you a packet. You get 1 freebie, but everything that you've done before that is null and void. So if you lose it on week 3, it's not that big of a deal. If you lose it on week 12, you lost a lot of stuff. Now, the other thing is, you can complete this packet to the fullest, but if you have not done the syllabus quiz, you will get a 0. You will not gain any extra credit. The syllabus quiz is open for an extended period of time, so there will be no excuses, no reopenings. Get that syllabus quiz done. Do it right now, right after this video, if you can, okay? Make sure you get that syllabus quiz in so you can get access to the large number of extra credit points that I have. So what do you expect for lab? What's the expectation every week? Each week, before lab, you're going to read your lab manual, watch any videos that I have listed in your pre-lab work, and maybe go through some Quizlets if you have time. When you get to lab, what's going to happen is we're going to have a very short mini lecture where I might reiterate things from these videos, talk about things that weren't in the videos, and give you general instructions for what we're going to be working on that day. Typically, in our 3-hour lab period, we're going to have that mini lecture. We're usually going to do some sort of a check-in activity to see how our learning is progressing from the week before. Then we're going to do some sort of group activity, warm-up, introduction to the content or connection to content from the week before. Sometimes we'll have anatomage activities, and we will always have time for self-study. So it's not just come in and look at things, though that is a big component to anatomy. It is guided, so you're not just lost in the wind, okay? And yeah, that is our expectation for lab. I will see you guys in the next video when we start talking about our terminology and actual content. See you then. Bye.